I'm back at the baler, and I'm gradually, well, not a heck of a whole lot of incentive to get it done today. They're pretty much calling for rain for the next 2 to 3 weeks, but I'd like to see this thing done. So I want to give you guys a comparison of the old bar that runs across the back end there that bolts onto the rail, and the new one. Now the reason I'm going to show you this is because I wanted to ask you if you saw any differences in it. So here's the old one. All right, I mean, obvious welds and bends and breaks in it are pretty obvious. Went through and trimmed these down because I needed it to make clearance. You can tell a bit of a difference compared to the new one. The thing is, and this is what I'm going to show you, other than the fact that I got this full wrapped up in a sweatshirt. This is the new bar that I had. Just picked it up. No, I didn't just pick it up, but I just looked at it last night. And are you guys noticing a extra set of holes in it? The holes that I needed to mount this bar were on the wrong side of this arm, this piece, this bracket. We do know it's the right one. Not really sure why, if it was just manufactured on a Monday or a Friday, because I think we all know that Wednesdays and Thursdays get you the peak performance through some of these places. So all I did, because what's the point of wanting to take it back and get a new piece? It's here, it's functional. Just need 4 holes drilled out, and that's exactly what I did. Mounted it up. It is even, exactly where it needs to be the whole way across. I measured that. I'm gonna go ahead and put it in, bolt it up, and that'll be done. The pickup is done. The new belt is in. If you guys are wondering what this is the old belt. Not sure what I want to do with it yet. Honestly, my more money cautious viewers are probably saying to fix it, splice it. It's got a lot of life in it yet. You know, you're probably right. Say the cut was on the other end. So I did spare the splice. Because normally what I do, because I really don't, I'm getting to the point anymore, I'm only 30, not allowed to be old and ornery, I guess, but I'm just at the point where if it's more of a hassle to fight it, to get it out, resort to brute force. And that's exactly what I did. I cut it off on the end. Normally I would go through and I'd just cut right here, because typically if you're taking these belts off, the splice is already pretty well done as it is. And you can see I did attempt to take the pin out. The pin is broke in 4 different places and all the pins are bad. So what I'm going to do on the remaining belts that I will not be taking out and replacing is trying to replace these pins. The splice is actually getting worn down quite a bit. I've ran these for 6 seasons now, gotten pretty good use out of them. So typically what they would do, what I would tell them to do, back in the old days when we ran that 535, go through and cut the splice out, put a new splice in it, cut out the broken part of the belt, and put in, you have to have at least, was it 3 or 6 feet of new belt, new splice put in, so it'll work properly, because otherwise it doesn't want to bend if you don't give it enough clearance between splices. So then I would just tell them to add whatever belting they needed to make up for what they had to cut out of that break. Because this, you can see from here to here, we were already broke. It was already starting to give, and that would have broke right when I was in the middle of, probably half of the next cutting, the next job that we have to do. So I guess I just like wasting money. I'm just in the mindset anymore. Put a new one in. I don't go through the dealer. I don't go through the green dealer for belts anymore, just because this guy right here was half price. And you know, compared to the deer belts, they say you have to watch for these because the rubber might not be as heavy. The one thing you check, I can't do it one-handed, which is probably a good thing. If you can actually fold it over on itself, and I tried it before I even put it in, but I can't hardly bend this belt, which is a good thing. It's a sign that it's a heavier, more durable rubber, and it's not going to die. I say die, essentially, it's what it's doing. Not going to fail within a few uses. And I can actually, you guys look at the old belt. If you guys can really see that, and compare it to the new belt, how much that's worn. I mean, normally you're just looking at the face on the tread here, but actually look at the back where the rubber is wearing down, and look at how that new belt compares to the old belt. So 6 seasons, it is probably time just to go through and start saying, replace. I'm gonna replace you. This is one of the $230 belts from, I actually got it offline, and 6 seasons. And it's actually holding up pretty darn well. It's got the different splices on it. I'm not sure the name of these. It's got the solid pin, one bigger pin as opposed to the multiple small pins, which I actually prefer the larger ones, because these, as you can see, are starting to fail. And what the problem is that when you get one fails, it's just a domino effect, and then it's just going to gradually work its way out from there. I mean, this is kind of dinged up. That's already obvious. I can see a crack forming on that one. So I can tell you right now, this belt, and oh, look at that. And the belt is already getting chewed up as it is. So I can almost tell you right now, this will be the next one I replace. The one on the outside, let me walk around, you guys can see that real quick. Let's talk about the tank real quick. I was asked if that tank affects your ability or hampers your ability to change the belts out. It does not. I changed that belt out in less than 20 minutes. I did it the wrong way. If you listen to the people that I worked with at the previous, or at the place I interned, one of the first jobs I was given was to change out a belt on a baler, and I did it wrong. The cheap way, the easy way, which in my lifetime up to that point, no one has actually told me how to do it. I was literally, even growing up, it was go change the belt needs to be changed in the baler. If I was by myself, guess what? You figure it out on your own. And I always, because on our 535, typically the belts had either completely come out, the rivet or the splice had given out, so the belt was completely gone. So I was pretty well trained my whole life growing up of replacing these belts with the previous one already gone. This one, as you guys can see, it's got a slice through it. It's actually been like this for a while. I'm gonna run it for a little while yet. The biggest thing I watch for when you get these blemishes on the front, I watch for the net wrap catching these, because that's where it'll give you a really bad headache. Same with right here. Not giving me any issues yet, but as soon as it starts giving me issues where the net wrap wants to catch on the belt as opposed to going to the bale, you're out of here, sir. Just like that. But the thing is, with the old belts and replacing them with the new belt, like up the dealership, I was asked to change a belt. All right. Well, the belt I was replacing was still on the baler, and I had just pulled the splice, yanked the old belt out, and I just re-threaded the new belt. And that's really just how I learned how to do these, I mean, growing up at home. And I was asked halfway through the job of putting the new belt on as to why I went and did it that way. He just kind of shook his head as to why I did it that way, but it's literally how I knew how to do it. And I was supposed to, and I'm sure I might as well go ahead and say it, what they recommend you do, assuming that the old belt is still in here, you get your new belt and you take out the old pin and you splice on your new belt, or I guess you could tape it on if you're in that kind of a situation. Attach it to the old belt, and then as you pull out the old belt, you are actually threading in your new belt because you could run it up, run it around. This tank does not give me any issues whatsoever as far as putting the new belt in. Actually, as odd as it sounds, I can climb up in here. I have plenty of room to work. I can actually lean up against this tank, and it actually gives me a little bit more stability as opposed to not having it there. So actually, that doesn't hinder me at all as far as putting a belt in. The only thing that this tank actually hurts me on is visibility, because when you're up in the tractor and you're running this, you can't really see what's going on back through here, which generally not much is going on. The biggest thing I worry about is a belt actually rolls over on itself, which I'm going to be replacing all but 5 of them. The other ones, I actually got 2, I think, are actually pretty new yet. But yeah, that was my spare. I've had this for a few years now, so I gotta get some new spares on him. But I try to stay on top of that. As far as not going through the baler thoroughly enough over this winter back in March, when I had already gone through it and it was ready to run, some of these breakdowns you're not going to catch as hard as you try looking for it. That roller, before it broke, something was up, I didn't know what, and noticing a minute little crack or whatever was giving me issues with that roll, you would have gone through this thing with a fine-tooth comb. And what I'm doing right now is, because we're shut down, it needs the work. I have 70 acres or so of hay first cut to make yet, and I really don't want to be shut down with rain on the way, because that's pretty much what it's looking like. If I'm fortunate enough where I get a window long enough to cut anything left of my first cut down, I gotta jump at it. But because we're already looking at the end of June, as opposed to being able to cut the last of my first crop the 1st of June, I'm already looking at it like I lost a cutting potentially. Depends on how the rest of the year actually pans out, but I'm actually looking at being able to make second cut off the stuff I'd already made down at the valley, when I'm going to be able to do first cut off of the actual bottom. I hope it doesn't plan out like that, but it might just happen. Oh well, the best you can do is plan for it, and that's what we're doing with this baler. So I'm gonna try to finish up. I wanted you guys to see that bar. I'm actually gonna go ahead and put that on, pick it up, run it, drop it down. I have to do a couple welds on it yet. I have to tack weld right through here. We got a stress fracture on each side. I'll get that welded up, and then this actually isn't too far from me, ready to go again. Grease it. So as far as running these balers forever and ever, that is a good remark to bring up. There is such a thing as metal fatigue, depending on how much you use a piece of equipment on a given year, and then just thinking you're going to run it for forever. 30, 40, 50,000 bales through a baler like this. By the time you get up to about 50,000 bales, you guys just saw the fatigue from just opening and shutting and running this machine. We had 2 up on top already that I'd fixed 2 years ago on each side. So you get the metal is actually starting to fail after a while, and that's something that, as an operator of this machinery, you have to be aware of too, is how long can you really run it before you're running around wasting time, wasting energy, chasing minor fixes. And if anybody's going to ask, would I update this baler? What would I update it to? Of course I would update it, but what would I update it to? 568, 569. I'm really not sure how crazy I am about updating to a lettered series just yet. There are a lot of nice 568s out there yet with 5 to 15,000 bales run through them. I can pick up a baler just like that. I actually was just quoted on one yesterday, just offhanded, 20,000, and I could actually have a 568. I don't know what the overall condition of it was, but they're overall, they're built heavier, heavier chains, heavier everything on them from what I understand. And that's really what I would like. Definitely get away from the smaller tires to bigger floaters. And I don't know, this baler, it has its dings and dents, but I'll keep putting parts on it until we get to a point where we decide we need to update. So I'm going to talk to you guys later. Until then, unless I add to this video, take care, take it easy, keep in touch. What would you guys update to? Would you go with another Deere? Would you go with a Vermeer? I hear a lot of guys are looking at Vermeers over Deere balers. Not saying I'm about to, but I'm just curious what my general viewers actually prefer as far as balers go. So I'll catch up with you later. Well, I think we're gonna make this the last update, fix it up, do something about it. Video on the round baler. Since you guys have been gone, I went through and I changed out a bunch of the pins that hold the belts together. So we got a bunch of used ones here, and I'll give you an example here of what they're supposed to look like. So this is what they're supposed to look like, you know, nice, solid-ish. Got a couple ridges there to help hold it in. That's a brand new pin. The old ones look like that. I don't know if we can focus on something other than my arm, my hand. And that, the zigzag pattern, isn't something you really want to see in these pins that hold these belts together. Because back to nightmares of growing up running that 535, that was actually a pretty common theme. Just because dairy farming, you fix everything instead of, as far as putting new parts on equipment, you did it when you had to, not because you wanted to. So that's why our belts were always spliced and respliced growing up. And granted, it's made me the person I am today. I would rather put in a new part that's going to get me a lot longer service life than constantly putting patches on a problem and then just kind of crossing your fingers and gritting your teeth and waiting for it to fail again. So this is going to gave me a little bit of a headache. An issue I had with the baler. It wasn't a super duper issue, but it was something that I was going to address. Where'd my flashlight go? So got some not so beautiful welds right through here. This is grooved out super terribly, and I got some slag there in that roll that really shouldn't hurt anything. I'm going to douse everything with water because yes, there is some hay left in there yet. So I'm going to go through and hit everything with water. But this was actually grooved out from the belt running on it, and it was actually halfway worn through this outside piece here, and left to run like that for a long enough amount of time, I would have to worry about that whole piece failing. And seems how that arm connects to the front and would just be a complete and utter nightmare if that fails. I would rather do some preventative maintenance on it and touched it up. So I actually did, that's why it looks so rough. I actually had to put a bead of weld down through the two grooves, and then I came back over top of them with another weld for how deep they were. I guess I could have ran a little bit slower, but when you're welding at an angle like that, you're trying to run away from your weld, and it worked out really well. This one's the same thing, and I imagine it'll actually shine up a little bit from the belt running on it. Running against it, but it'll at least extend its service life out to as long as we'll have this baler. So I'm happy about that. The problem is I took this roll out, shut buddy, to get to it. So that roll is ready to go back in. The only problem is the shaft actually just sits in there by myself, and the shaft actually fell into the inside of this roll, and this bearing just kind of hangs there. So I actually did a little bit of creative, well, maybe some creative words were thrown around, but I managed to get the shaft back through this bearing here. This is ready to go back on. 2 bolts hold that on. And I'm pretty well winding down on what I want to do to this baler, just to the point where all the major stuff is done. Confident to take it back to the field. Wasn't feeling so great after I started looking it over again after I ran it that last day, but overall it's not a brand new piece of equipment. I believe it's a over 20 years old. This means, what do you expect? So I think that's all I got for this video, guys. Hopefully, I don't know what we're going to be doing. I actually have to move some hay, and this was the big shed project to work on, unless I decide to pull something else in, because I do have a bunch of random projects that need to be worked on. But I'll be glad to say that the baler's done for now. So with that, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Take care. Take it easy. Keep in touch. I'll talk to you guys later.